Back roads and highways. I learned to drive on back roads. The roads where I grew up wound through hollows and around hillsides. You couldn't see very far ahead because there was usually a curve, a stand of trees, or the next mountain blocking the view. In the winter, you learned quickly which roads stayed shaded and which hills could surprise you after a snowfall. If you met another vehicle on some stretches, both drivers slowed down and worked together. At 16, I couldn't wait to get on the highway. The highway felt like freedom. The speed limits were higher, the destinations were further away, and for miles at a time you could see exactly where you were headed. Like most teenagers, I assumed that was the better road. Then I spent the next 20 years traveling them. There were sales territories, relocations, airports, customer visits, and long stretches of interstate connecting one assignment to the next. Entire seasons of my life were measured in exit numbers, hotel stays, and miles driven. Highways became familiar. I learned to appreciate their efficiency and the opportunities they represented. For a long time, I thought life worked that way too. You picked a destination, merged onto the road, and kept moving forward. Then Dad had a stroke. At the time, I was in Richmond, Virginia. The first reports were confusing, as these things often are. The plan was to airlift him to Roanoke, and I started driving almost immediately. Somewhere along the way, the weather changed. Fog settled in thick enough that the helicopter couldn't fly, and the decision was made to transport him by ambulance to Ruby Memorial in Morgantown instead. I still remember pulling off the interstate. Most of my adult life had been spent on highways. They were predictable, efficient, designed to move people from one place to another as quickly as possible. But that night, the quickest route to my father wasn't the interstate. It was the back roads. The same roads I had learned to drive as a teenager. The same roads I had spent years leaving behind. The drive itself is mostly a blur now, but a few details remain surprisingly clear. The roads were dark and nearly empty. Deer seemed to materialize from nowhere. After a while, I started counting them, partly because there wasn't much else I could do, and partly because counting deer felt easier than thinking about why I was making the trip. I counted 27 before the night was over. There was also a possum. To this day, I maintain that it was the largest possum in the history of Appalachia. As the story has grown over the years, the possum eventually stood up on its hind legs and hissed at me while crossing the road directly in front of the car. Whether that happened exactly as remembered is open to debate. It was sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was running almost entirely on adrenaline. The years may have altered a few details, and possibly the truth. But what is not open to debate is that I found the entire encounter deeply unsettling. By the time I pulled into Morgantown, it was around 3:40 in the morning. The ambulance arrived roughly 20 minutes later. I've thought about that drive many times since. At the time, all I cared about was reaching the hospital. I wasn't reflecting on life lessons or drawing spiritual conclusions. I simply wanted to get there. But looking back, I'm struck by something I couldn't have appreciated then. The roads I had spent years trying to leave behind were the very roads carrying me towards something that mattered most. The highways had their purpose. They expanded my world. They took me places I never would have seen otherwise. They introduced me to opportunities I could never have imagined as a teenager growing up among these hills. I'm grateful for every one of those miles. But the back roads had been doing their own quiet work all along. They taught me patience before I knew I needed it. They taught me trust when I couldn't see around the next curve. They taught me that not every worthwhile journey provides a clear view of the destination. Most importantly, they gave me roots. The older I get, the less interested I am in deciding which road was better. The highways gave me opportunities I never would have found by staying home. The back roads gave me a place worth returning to. One taught me how far I could go. The other reminded me who I was while I was going. These days, I still drive both. Some mornings take me down roads I've known my entire life. Others put me on highways headed somewhere new. I find comfort in both. Life, it turns out, is a lot like that. We rarely know which roads will matter most while we're traveling them. Some expand our horizons. Others deepen our roots. Some teach us how to leave. Others teach us how to come home. And if I've learned anything from spending time on both, it's that God wastes neither. The roads that carried us away and the roads that lead us back are often part of the same journey.